Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Toss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins touchdown.
Drives. Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, episode 75 is here. We are 3/4 of a way to episode 100. That is incredible, Maan. That is exciting for the Bengals Pulse. And what's even more exciting, Maan, is we have a lot of – we told you last week, guys, we have a lot of cool stuff coming. The Bengals Pulse is going to really start to take off here, and we are very excited. Before we get started with the show, Maan, let's introduce the newest family member to the Bengals Pulse, our buddy Eric Wollschlager. Eric, are you there?
Hooday, guys. Hooday, Bengal Nation.
All right, hooday. Hooday. Eric is going to be officially the producer now of the Bengals Pulse. Eric, welcome to the show. We are so excited to bring you on to the Bengal Pulse and the Wincinnati pod family, man. Welcome.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it's exciting to join the Wincinnati podcast network. Maan and I and Jake have been friends for many years, sharing our Bengals fandom. A little bit about myself. I've been a displaced fan since I was 4 years old. Last year, my son and I had the privilege of becoming first-time season ticket members. We checked off a major bucket list item. We drove up from Florida for every home game, including the playoffs.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
It was tiring, but it was worth it. So far this year, we've got the first 5 sketched out for sure, and the rest to come. As you can tell by my background, my favorite subject is the Bengals. I don't talk a whole lot normally unless you're talking about the Bengals, and then I won't stop shutting up. With that being said, my goal here is to be like the pacemaker for the Pulse. I'm always going to keep the show in rhythm and keep the show beating, the Pulse beating, and the show running smoothly. So hopefully I'll be the Mr. Oz behind the curtain, and you'll never see me, and everything will just be awesome.
You're going to be great. And we're glad to have you.
Guys, wait till you see all the awesome stuff that Eric is bringing to the show as well. Maan and I, not very technical savvy. So, Eric, we are so happy to have you. Maan with his, I don't want to say elder age, but Maan with his elder age. We are not in the world of technology, Maan, are we? We're just very simple guys.
So aren't you a birthday boy? You're getting older, birthday boy. You're getting older.
Not till tomorrow. But yes.
Just say I am the youngest member of the Pulse. So.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So no age jokes from you, Eric.
With that being said, we've got a lot of cool things that I'm trying to add to the show. But as everybody knows, sometimes things go wrong. And as Joe Burrow would say, a great leader takes all the blame and gives all the credit. So when we have a great show, it's going to be Maan and Jake. If it's not so good, you can blame Eric.
I like that. I like that thought process, Eric. I like it.
Okay. Let's do this.
All right, let's get started. Let's get started with the show. Man, it's going to be awesome having Eric. We actually have graphics, Maan. It's incredible. We are moving to the 21st century with the Bengals Pulse. I am so excited.
Eric today, at the 100th show sometime in November, Taylor Swift will be on. I mean, we're just big time. I mean, we are big time on the Bengals Pulse, man. It's just I can't wait.
Listen. I will say this: being a season ticket holder as well. In Florida last year, I'll tell you, it is so impressive that Eric drove up to every single game. Maan, there were weeks when he drove up 2 weeks in a row. You and I have made that drive a lot, Mon, in our lifetime. In the last 40 years, we've made that drive a lot. That is extremely difficult to do.
Yeah, it is. It is. He's something else. He's something else.
All right, so let's get to this. Practice today. Obviously, some of the bigger news. Myles Murphy did not play in the game on Friday due to sickness, illness. He was back at practice today. Another familiar face back at practice, Joe Mixon, back at practice. Obviously, he returns to practice today after, we'll say, the positive resolution to that pending legal case. So good to have Joe back in the mix. Obviously, haven't heard anything from the NFL, but I really can't imagine anything coming down as far as a suspension or anything like that goes for Joe Mixon. Any thoughts about Joe or practice today, Mon?
No, I'm glad everything is settled with Joe. He can come back and practice and focus on football. I would be stunned if the NFL does any discipline comes from the NFL. I'm glad they're back out there. We are going to talk about the Falcon game. I thought it was a little uneven. I think Cheeto practice. He's ramping up his practice a little bit today, trying to get ready for Week 1 against Cleveland. That's a positive. Of course, Joe Burrow didn't practice again, but I'm not really worried about that. I am a little concerned about the defensive backs. I think they're down 4 or 5 defensive backs due to nagging injuries. Mike Thomas, the safety, had to take some snaps at cornerback. Yeah. Something to monitor. We got to get healthy there. We'll see how that shakes out, but we're getting closer to real football.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like anything. It didn't seem like anything serious as far as injuries in the defensive backfield goes. Minor injuries and probably little tweaks and stuff here and there, but didn't seem too serious as far as the injury bug goes. And knock on wood, it seems like we came out pretty clean from that Falcons game. Hopefully, getting some of those other guys back healthy, like you said. Joe Burrow doesn't make the trip, but again, not very alarming there. They didn't bring any of the injured guys, and really, Joe Burrow doesn't need to make that trip. Again, nothing really alarming there. Coach Taylor was on the Pat McAfee show this week. I don't know if you saw that, Mon. It was really good stuff from Coach Taylor. Pat McAfee tried to squeeze a little bit out of him as well when it came to Joe Burrow. And it looks like all systems a go for Joe in Week 1, which is very exciting. Again, we are getting closer and closer, Mon. We have one more preseason game, a little bit of a bye week there, and we are ready to go. This show today, the Bengals Pulse, is going to be it's going to be awesome. Everybody is doing their roster, 53-man roster takes. You and I are going to do the same. So very excited about that. I'm sure you and I are going to defer on some of those roster spots. But before we do that, Mom, let's talk a little bit about the Bengals-Falcons game, because we did have a game on Friday, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And we had an exciting play in that game from Joseph Ossai.
A very exciting play from Joseph Ossai. Again, that starting defense, Mon, played really for the first time that we have seen this preseason. And, a drive by the Falcons, what was it? What did it end up being? 18 or 19 plays from that Falcons offense, that starting Falcons offense. Just seemed like the Bengals could not get off the field. The Bengals did make a big play there.
Yeah, it did. That was
Ritter.
There it is. Here's
to Miller. That one's deflected up in the air and picked off.
The best thing about that play, Jake, that ended that 15-play drive.
Intercepted by Joseph Ossai.
Wasn't passive interference on Scotty Miller here.
Draped over his back to me. Got there a little early with that right hand. While we were watching the game together, these Falcon announcers just absolutely atrocious. The whole time they're the whole time they're trying to, go back and forth like, just completely one-sided. It is what it is. But great play by Joseph Asai. We talked about a 15-play, 18-play drive. It took almost the entire quarter. I think the Bengals only ran maybe 12 to 16 plays in the first half. So that drive really took the majority of the first quarter. But like the Bengals defense has done in the past, bend but don't break defense, where, again, giving up a lot of yards, but the game ends up being 3-3 at halftime. So let's pull up some stats here, Maan. Let's talk about the stats from the game. Again, the game ends in a tie. I mean, it is what it is. It's preseason. I think the only thing worse than a preseason football game is a tie in a preseason football game. But the game ends up 13-13. And really, when you go back and look at the numbers, the Falcons' numbers and their time of possession, what the Bengals defense did is actually very impressive. When you look at the stops made, we saw the Joseph Asai interception, a great play by Mike Hilton, by the way, deflecting that ball up in the air with that pass breakup. But again, the game ends 13-13, 3-3 at half. The Falcons really, time of possession-wise, dominated this football game. Let's look at some of the offensive stats. So you can see on there, Trevor Siemian, 7 for 14 for 62 yards. But really the guy on Friday night was Jake the Snake Browning, right, Mon? A guy that you and I like. 16 of 22, 140 yards passing. He did have an interception on a very bad decision. 4 carries for 50 yards. He was the leading rusher in this game, Mon. Made some plays with his legs and led that big, should have been the game-winning drive at the end of the game there. A great drive led by Jake the Snake Browning. What do you think about the quarterback play after 2 games now? We got a little bit bigger of a sample size between these two guys. What are you thinking right now? What's that quarterback room looking like?
Yeah, before I get to that, I just want to talk about that 15-play drive, the first drive.
Yes.
It was good for the defense. The starters were out there, they sweat and communicate and actually get out there and play football. Was a little concerned about that. They gave up some big third down conversions. They did come up with that big play, as you said. We saw the clip of Joseph Osai. That was huge. They didn't give up any points there. Concerning the quarterbacks, Trevor Siemian played with a better offensive line. He did struggle. Jake Browning came in. Listen, he's an impressive guy, very athletic. He just doesn't have the strongest arm. He did make that questionable interception, but you have to give an assist to that offensive line. He really was pressured a lot. They could not run the ball at all in the second half.
No.
The 4 carries for 50 yards, that's on scrambles. It looks good on paper, but the running backs they had no rushing lanes. It's tough. I know he's playing with a makeshift, undrafted free agents, bunch of second, third stringers on that offensive line, but he wasn't exactly playing against a chiseled veteran defensive line in the second half. Little concerning. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals actually consider maybe a roster cut. A lot of the media beat writers are talking about that. I don't know if that's going to happen. It could. Siemian, is a veteran. He's getting a little older. Maybe he's not as athletic as he used to be, but he does have a stronger arm than Jake Browning. But he did look rough in that first half. It was not impressive.
It was not at all. And again, a little alarming, to be honest, that Trevor Siemian, I think everybody kind of thinks he might be the number 2 right now. And that's a little alarming when you see he has struggled, Mon. He has struggled. He struggled this week. He struggled last week against Green Bay's 2s. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sold on Trevor Siemian. And maybe that quarterback situation, maybe there's somebody still out there. I know it's tough to think that because bringing a guy in this late in the process is probably not something the Bengals want to do. But man, oh man, we can't go into this season with Trevor Siemian as the number 2 guy. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of faith in that. Go back to the running game real quick, Mon. You said it. We're going to take Jake the Snake Browning's numbers out of it, right? His 4 carries for 50 yards. The 2 backs, Chase Brown and Chris Evans, had 16 carries, Mon. 16 carries between the 2 of them, averaged 2 yards a carry. That is not good. And again, I don't think you know, in the regular season, you see those kind of numbers, but in preseason, you should not see 2 yards per carry on average. You would think there would be a big run here or there, but nothing, Mon, nothing right now from that offensive line. Again, we're talking about the backups and stuff. Now, offensively, the only starter that played was Jonah Williams. He played right tackle that first drive, but besides that, none of the starters played. So, I don't think there's any reason for us to get all excited about this offensive line situation yet. But the depth of it, I think that is alarming, and that is something that really we need to look at. You can see Chase Brown has that 1 touchdown. He had 9 carries for 18 yards. Again, Mon, not a very good average. That's 2 yards per carry. That's not going to win you a lot of football games. And again, I know this is just preseason, but not good. Let's talk about the receivers and what we saw out of those guys. Obviously, Yoshi, 5 catches for 44 yards. He did have a drop there, but once again, we see a guy that we feel very comfortable about being able to come in right away and play football for this Bengals team. Cedric Jackson, Mon, a guy that you really like, a guy that I was very, I don't know what the word is, but I wasn't very positive about him last week. But Cedric Jackson had a better game. He had a bounce back game. He looked like maybe he could play a little bit of football. 4 receptions for 42 yards. Charlie Jones also had 4 receptions. His was for 36 yards. So again, we're starting to see some of these younger guys now making some plays in Charlie Jones and Yoshi and now Cedric Jackson. Any thoughts about the receivers and the way they played?
No, Yoshivas has been has had an impressive camp. He definitely looks the part. The guy, he's more polished than I thought he would be. Coming from that Ivy League school, he's physical out there. He just looks like he belongs, and he doesn't look like a rookie from an Ivy League school. I think he's going to produce and contribute a lot this year. It was good to see Chuck Sizzle out there catching some balls. I know he has a labrum issue. Couple tough catches there. Chase Brown, he scored that touchdown. He didn't have the offensive line really struggled. Like we just mentioned a few seconds ago, run blocking just wasn't there. I still think he's going to be a fine football player. Some of the pass blocking, the one interception that Jake Browning had, he was rushed out of the pocket, but if you saw Chase Brown, he went out. He actually hit Jackson Carman, causing him to whiff on the defensive lineman that forced Jake Browning out of the pocket to throw that horrible interception. So some communication issues there with Chase Brown trying to pass block and help out that offensive line. Overall, this rookie class and the undrafted free agents and the second-year guys that didn't play a lot last year, they're getting to play a lot this preseason. And, they're getting that experience, and hopefully, they help our depth and get this team, protect this team in case, we do get some of these injuries early in the season.
Right. Well, let's move to the defensive side of the ball again. Joseph Asai with that big play, the interception. Bengals had 4 sacks as a defense. Jalen Davis, your guy, ended up with a sack. Raymond Johnson gets a half sack with Jeff Gunter. Raymond Johnson, a guy I know that you really like, he has really shined. Him and Gunter both have shined as far as I'm concerned. Kendra Jones gets a sack as well. And then Owen Carney. Owen Carney had a big sack, Mon, a really big sack toward the end of that football game that got the offense the football back. I think it was after the interception, and a big sack by Owen Carney. Defensively, Bocce and Turner, you can see they both had 4 tackles. They had five total, but 4 solo. Tyson Anderson has another good game, Mon, as well. And, again, these defensive younger guys are looking better and better. I thought they played really well the second half of that football game, and starting to see some guys out there making plays. I think DJ Ivy played a little better. He got beat a couple times. I think it's kind of like one of those things. Welcome to the NFL, Mr. Ivy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought he played better as well. But I think as a group defensively, defensive guys made some plays. We did see Ivy make a huge play, right? At the end of the football game that really forced Atlanta to kick that game-tying field goal where, basically the Falcons took a shot in the end zone. It was one-on-one coverage, which I'm not sure why it was man coverage at that moment in the game. But DJ Ivy makes a good play on it. And what'd you think? What'd you think about the defense? Real quick.
No, they did well. Like I said, I was really concerned of just the first drive because it's the first string guys.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are the backbone of the team. But it was good to see Ivy and I thought Marcus Bailey got his hands on a couple balls there. They look good. I love Raymond Johnson from Georgia Southern. He looked the part. He has 2 preseasons in a row. Hopefully they get him on the practice squad. Nobody, tries to pluck him off. They're so deep at the defensive line. There's no way he can make the active 53. We are just way too deep. Yeah. Need to see Miles Murphy come in and start producing. I know he was sick. Hopefully he plays a lot. Just want to see him have a quality year, get his 5, 6, 7 sacks. Yeah. But overall, the defense did really well. Holding them to 13 points. Atlanta had the ball a lot, and they had the better backup quarterback. That quarterback for Atlanta is good. And they held their own. They did good. Got to give them credit. Good job for Ludini.
Not sure why he's the backup, too. Again, I know there's probably a lot of Des Ridder fans out there in Bengal Pulse land, but I'm not really sure why. What was it? What's his name? The kid that played for Washington. The Falcons backup. What was his name?
Tyler Heineke.
Heineke. Yeah. Not sure why he's not starting, but it is what it is. I would love to have him. I would love to have Tyler Heineke right now as our number 2 quarterback. But Mon, let's move on. Let's move on again. I want to say that overall this preseason has been kind of meh, but it is a preseason, and hopefully we do see a little bit more of the starters this coming week. We'll see what happens. So, all right, let's move on to our roster. 53-man, Mon, you and I love doing this. This is the early 53 by Jake and Mon. Mon, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to go ahead and talk about mine first. We're going to go by position. I'm going to talk about mine first, and then we'll flip it over to you. You'll read yours, and then I'll discuss mine, and then you'll discuss yours. How about that? Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do offense first, Mon. We're going to start with the quarterback position. For me, obviously, the number 1 guy is a no-brainer. Joe Burrow, obviously. We don't even have to really discuss that. Number 2, Mon, might shock you. I'm going with Jake the Snake Browning. I think Jake the Snake Browning right now has put himself in a position to be the number 2 guy, Mon. But let's talk about your guys first. I'm really curious to see who you have at number 2.
All right, obviously, Joe Burrow is number one. That's a no-brainer. I went ahead and went with the quarterback that hasn't played the best. I went with Trevor Siemian. I'm going by the 33 NFL starts. His athleticism isn't on par with Jake Browning. Jake Browning is the better athlete, a little more mobile, but arm strength, it's not even close. Jake Browning, I'm a little stunned. He throws some wobblers out there. He does have a gunslinger mentality, but his arm strength is concerning to me. Has he played better than Simeon? He has. I'm going to go with the 30-plus NFL starts. Trevor Siemian, this is his first year in the Bengals system. Jake Browning has been here for 2.5. So, he's a little bit further ahead when it comes to Zach Taylor and his offensive philosophy. I think things will click for Trevor Siemian. If, Ace and Zim said this on their show the other day. Zim said it. If Joe Burrow gets hurt, we're in trouble. We know it's bad. But if Joe Burrow's out a week or 2 weeks, I'm want to go with a quarterback that has 30-plus NFL starts, and that's going to be Trevor Siemian. Now, saying that, if a player gets cut last final roster cuts, the Bengals will be scouring that waiver wire and looking. Now, would they want to bring in a guy that hasn't been to camp and hasn't been that doesn't know? I don't know. We'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's neither of these guys. But if I had to pick one today, it's going to be Siemian.
Well, I think the one thing that we have to look at is, Mon, is that neither one of these guys has had the ones, right? I think that's important, that neither one of these guys has been behind the one O-line, has had the Migos, has had Irv Smith, has had Joe Mixon, right? So it's kind of hard to jump to panicking mode right now. But I've always been a Jake Browning fan. I wanted him to be the number 2 last year. There's a reason why this guy is still on this roster, Mon, and the coaches see something. And I think we saw that on Friday. I'm with you. If obviously we're not even going to speak of the matter of Joe Burrow, but for me personally, if there is a situation and a quarterback has to go in, give me the guy that can move around, that can make plays with his legs. Because when you have a backup quarterback in on, you got to have a guy in there that is going to make plays with his legs. That's going to make some off-time throws. That are, plays are going to break down a lot quicker. They're not going to see things as fast as a Joe Burrow would. So I'm going with Jake the Snake Browning. I know what you mean about all the starts and all that good stuff, and I know what you mean about the arm, but Trevor Siemian does not impress me at all. He is a guy that has started in this league 33 games, and he has looked like he has never played a game in the NFL against twos. So that does not build my confidence in Trevor Siemian. But let's move on to the running backs, all right? Again, now, listeners, Mon and I did this separately. So we both sent Eric this separately. So Mon and I have no idea what the other person has chosen. But let's go running backs. For me, obviously, Joe Mixon is a no-brainer. Travion Williams, to me, is also a no-brainer. And Chase Brown, again, and Chris Evans both are guys that I think are going to make this roster, Mon. I think the Bengals go with 4 running backs. I talked about last week, Travion Williams being a little banged up still, having that lower body injury. Chase Brown, again, Chris Evans, these guys, they've had their moments in these first 2 preseason games, but Travion Williams, hopefully healthy, I think he could be the number 2 guy. We'll just have to wait and see. Again, just like the quarterbacks, Chris Evans, Chase Brown have not played behind that one offensive line yet. Mon, who do you got?
I got Joe Mixon, number 1. Obviously, he's going to be the starter. I expect a big, big year from him. Chris Evans, number 2. Chris Evans, to me, is going to be he solidified his role on this roster. A lot of people had him potentially on the bubble. He wasn't going to make it. Chris Evans, the way he's played, I've said it before. I think you can make an argument he's one of the most talented running backs on the roster, if not the most talented. I think he's going to have a big year. Travion Williams, obviously that ankle injury, played a lot for us last year. He's a He's a survivor. He's been on the team for about 5 years now. Chase Brown, they're expecting big things from him. I expect he's going to come in. He's going to play some special teams. He even returned a kick the other night too. Chase Brown is going to get a lot of carries this year, so it's going to be running back by committee. Joe Mixon obviously is going to be the bell cow. He's going to get most of the carries, but I could see Evans, Williams, and Brown all contributing and carrying the ball quite a bit. That's a solid batch of running backs for an NFL team.
It is. It is. I like it, and interesting that we both think they're keeping 4. So there's the first agreement of I'm sure a very, very short list of agreement. All right, let's go to tight end, Maan. We're gonna go to wide receiver first. Let's go to wide receiver. Obviously, for me, the amigos. We got the best 3 receivers in the NFL as far as that group goes. After that, I love Trent Irwin. I think Trent Irwin is a lock for this roster. Obviously, Yoshi is going to be a lock for this roster. Charlie Jones is going to be a lock for this roster, Mon. And I'm going to go right now with 7 receivers. And I think Stanley Morgan makes this roster, Mon. You and I have talked about this the last couple weeks. Stanley Morgan is a special teams ace. He is a guy that is not making this roster because of how he plays wide receiver. It's because of what he does on special teams. And let's not forget this. Stanley Morgan, when asked to do things on offense, always comes in and always seems to make an important play on offense. So I think he's a guy that overall he brings a lot to this roster. So I'm going with 7 wide receivers, Mon. The Bengals are going to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to need 7 wide receivers to do that.
That's fair. I like that list because it's just like mine. The big 3, obviously, Chase, Higgins and Boyd. There's no better trio in the NFL than those guys. Obviously, the draft picks, Jones, Yoshivas. I got Stanley Morgan also.
Wow.
I expect.
I did not think you were keeping 7.
I think Charlie Jones is going to play a big part if that shoulder holds up, returning punts. I expect him to hopefully, pop a couple and, give us some energy there when we need it. I think he's going to be a big special teams player. Irwin, he just keeps on impressing. He's a great wide receiver. He's wide receiver 4 on the team. Yoshivas, we talked about him earlier. He's going to contribute a lot. He's a lot more advanced than we thought draft day. Stanley Morgan, core special teamer, big-time core special teamer. Do have some concerns about him when he's on offense. I think Ace and Zim mentioned it last night, also heard it in Spaces. It's a valid point. When Stanley Morgan's in on offense, it's usually a tip-off. It's a run play because he's such a great run blocker for a wide receiver. Yes. They have that little sweep, and he's a lead blocker. So, a lot of teams might know that, hey, Morgan's in, look for a sweep here to Mixon or something. But I like those 7 wide receivers. You hit it right on the head. We throw the ball a lot. We need wide receivers because there's a lot of wear and tear on those guys in a 17-game season.
Agreed. And I think Eric made a great point too. Is I would love to see when Stanley Morgan does come in, maybe start throwing the ball a little bit more, running some play action when he's in the football game, because he does really tip it off. I mean, you and I watching the games together, as soon as Morgan's in, we're both looking at each other like, okay, this is a run play. Because they're going to pull him, they're going to bring him across the line of scrimmage, they're going to do a bunch of different stuff with him. But not a bad call by Eric there. Maybe running some more play action when Stanley Morgan is in. All right. And again, that receiving core, Mon, is pretty damn good. It is the best receiving core that we have had in a very long time. And, last year, you and I both know if Tyler Boyd does not get hurt in that Chiefs game, we are going to a second Super Bowl in a row. This year, if that situation, God forbid, happens again, I feel a lot more comfortable with Yoshi in there and those guys than what we had last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you on that take. Tyler Boyd was set to have a big game in that AFC Championship game.
All right,
next?
let's move
Offensive
on.
line?
Tight end is next, Mom. We're going to move to
Tight end,
tight
okay.
end. And again, for me, obviously, Irv Smith, the guy we have not seen in preseason, he is going to be the guy. He's going to have a big year, Mon. I'm going to tell you right now. Again, we know Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow makes tight ends a lot of money, right? He's done it 2 years in a row. He has made a tight end a lot of money. He is going to do the same thing this year for Irv Smith. But I think Irv Smith is better than Uzama, and I think he's better than Hayden Hurst. I think Irv Smith, this could be that other weapon that the Bengals have really lacked. So I like Irv Smith. I think our guy Tyler Sample. I think Drew Sample. I think Drew Sample has got to be on there, Mon. He's played a lot more in the preseason now. It's funny, every time Drew Sample makes a play in a game, we always go back to that. Look, Sample's doing things, right? I think Sample has been one of the best inline blockers that the Bengals have had these last couple years. I know he was a second-round pick. He's not really lived up to a second-round pick, but he is a good blocker, and I think he is going to make this roster, and I think he makes it fairly easy, which is, again, we signed him later on in the process, but I think he makes this roster. And I'm going to go with a surprise roster make here, and that is Tanner Hudson. Tanner Hudson, Mon, he looked the part before that concussion. He looks like a guy that just fits this offense, a guy that you can split out wide, that can create some mismatch problems, especially against the linebackers. I like Tanner Hudson, and I think hopefully he gets back healthy, because I think Tanner Hudson right now has a spot on this 53-man roster. I think he is going to make this roster, Mon. Tanner Hudson.
Yeah, he's been the darling of camp. Irv Smith, obviously, I have him making the team. I have Drew Sample also. I'm going with Devin Asiasi as my third tight end, three tight ends only. I'm going with him because he's a third round pick. He's obviously got a lot of talent. Tanner Hudson has surprised in camp. He was with the Buccaneers, undrafted free agent. He has some starts in the NFL. That concussion, he's back at practice now. I'm just going to go with the guy that's the higher draft pick, Devin Asiasi. I think he has more upside. He's younger. And I think the Bengals might roll that way because, they might see something in him, and maybe that light bulb will come on and he's going to develop, because he was highly thought of coming out in the draft process. Tanner Hudson, hopefully they can keep on the practice squad, but I'm going with Asiasi, Sample, and Smith.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I think Asiasi, he's just not a weapon. I mean, again, if Irv Smith goes down, you got to have a guy that can come in and make plays at the tight end position, and it's not Devin Asiasi. We saw that on Friday on a big fourth down play. The guy couldn't even get 2 yards. He could not outrun the outside linebacker. He is not a guy that needs to be on this 53-man roster. And if the Bengals keep Devin Asiasi on this roster, I think that's a hindrance. I just don't feel like he belongs. And again,
Jake, hold on one second. Just to Tanner Hudson he's been on 4 NFL teams.
Right.
He's an undrafted free agent. He's bounced around. I know he's had a couple of good weeks here. He spent a couple, sometime in the practice squad. I get it. They're both. Asiasi has not impressed since he's been here. Nope. I think there's more of a ceiling with him. Hudson has bounced around. I need to see a little bit more than 2 weeks of camp.
And you know what's crazy is, Maan? You're right. Hudson's only been here for 3 weeks, and he's done more than Asiasi has in the last year. But we'll move on. Let's not get stuck on tight end. We'll stay on this the whole time. And remember too, maybe that third tight end, Maan, is not on this roster. Maybe come roster cuts, we could see maybe the third tight end, maybe not again,
Well,
right.
Mitch Wilcox will be on PUP, so maybe he'll
going to
come
be
in.
starting the season on PUP. But I'm saying when there's roster cuts being made, maybe right now that third tight end is not on this roster. Let's move to the offensive line, Mon. All right, here we go. Obviously, the starting five right now: Orlando Brown, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and then Jonah Williams right now at that right tackle position. Again, La'el Collins, I have him starting on PUP. I think he will start on PUP, although it looks like he's working his way back, Mon, to getting back to healthy and being able to contribute on this football team. So we all know the starting five, right? And that's a good starting five. That is the best starting five that we have put on the field since I can remember. I mean, honest to God, Mon, I cannot remember. I think you have to go all the way back to maybe that Whitworth year where we had what was that, 2014? Was that 2014? Yeah. Oh, no, 2015. 2015, that was a pretty solid offensive line in 2015. I think this offensive line is better than that one in 2015. But here we go. Let's move on here. We got Cody Ford. I got him making the roster. I think he's looked well. Max Sharping, who right now might be the backup center. He's played a lot of center. They've been flipping him and Trey Hill back and forth from center to guard. So I have Trey Hill making this team. I have Deontay Smith making this team, a guy that's played a lot of football. And this was a tough one, but I went with the Dinajay. Jackson Carman, Mon, I'm pretty sure I could throw you out there and get the same production that I'm getting right now from Jackson Carman. And I don't see it from Jackson. I'm sorry. I think he's a practice squad guy. And if I'm putting a Dinajay on there, that tells you how I feel about Jackson Carman right now. And then, of course, I got Collins on PUP. Mon, who do you got?
I got the same starting five you have. I have all the confidence in the world in them. Jonah Williams did look good the other night. I've been very critical of him. He looked the part. He played 10-plus snaps. I think we're going to be fine at right tackle with them. My other guys, I have Hakeem Adeniji there, Deontay Smith. They're going to be both our tackles. Max Sharping. And I also picked Trey Hill. I think I picked 9 total. So, and LC from PUP, if he comes in. Was that 9 total I have there? 1, 2, 3.
That's
4,
9,
5,
yeah,
6.
because I had 10, I believe.
Yeah, right. So I have 9 total. Deontay Smith, to me, has become the swing tackle. I think he's our 6th best lineman right now. Him and Sharping. Sharping has been playing a lot at center. So they're 2 locks as backups. The other one's Trey Hill, Hakeem Adeniji. Hakeem Adeniji, he is what he is. He's a backup offensive lineman. He has filled in and started multiple games in the NFL. Obviously, we remember the Super Bowl and what happened last year in Kansas City. You know what? It's good to have him in there if he has to come in and play one game. But I'm happy with those 4 backups. I will say this. That 9th offensive lineman could be on somebody else's roster right now. Final cut down day is going to be huge. So we'll see how that shakes out right there.
Interesting you don't have Cody Ford making this team. I think he's better than Adeniji. And I think, I don't know, that's just interesting to me because I think if you keep one of those two, you definitely keep Cody Ford over Adeniji. But I will say this. I think when Collins comes back from PUP, Mon, I think Adeniji gets bumped down to the practice squad and Collins will take Adeniji's spot. But I think Cody Ford makes this roster. I don't think there's any doubt. He has really played well these first 2 preseason games and has looked well in camp as well. So, all right, let's move on. We are going to go now to the defensive side of the ball, Mon. We're going to start with safety. And again, a position where we lose 2 great players and a position where you and I kind of thought, man, how are these? What's this safety position going to look like? How's it going to shake out? And now it looks like it might shake out okay. So here we go. We got obviously Dax Hill, right? That is a lock. Obviously, we have Mr. Scott making this roster. I don't think you go out and you get a guy like Nick Scott, who's played in the Super Bowl, who started in a Super Bowl, and he doesn't make this roster. Then you have, from Nick Scott, you have Tyson Anderson. Again, a guy I did not have on this 53 2 weeks ago, but a guy I think now that has showed not only can he play in this league, he might be a starter down the road, Mon. He has looked really good. Tyson Anderson. And then obviously my favorite pick of the draft, Jordan Battle. I absolutely love Jordan Battle. And I think there's no doubt that Jordan Battle makes this roster. And not only makes this roster, Mon, but really makes a huge difference on this football team, on special teams, and at the safety position. I have the Bengals keeping 4 safeties right now. But again, we all know some of those guys at corner are, you can move those guys around and be a little bit flexible there. Who do you got, Mon, at safety?
Got the same 4. I got Dax Hill, Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, and Tyson Anderson. Very athletic with Dax Hill and Nick Scott. We mentioned this numerous episodes. We're losing a little bit of the communication experience, but we're gaining that athleticism. So I think they're going to be just fine. I like what I've seen from our safeties in preseason. Battles look good. Had that horrible penalty, which was ticky-tack.
Yeah.
On against the Falcons. Tyson Anderson really flashing on special teams. That's big because our 4th safety, they need to play special teams. Look at Mike Thomas. So Tyson Anderson's going to fill in. Again, he's fast. His measurables is really impressive. I think he could develop into be a special player. I like those 4.
I do too. I will say this real quick. No Mike Thomas on either one of our rosters right now. I think that's probably going to be the toughest cut. And I'll be honest with you. I kept Stanley Morgan over Mike Thomas. That was who I was picking between. Mike Thomas, very tough if Mike Thomas does not make this roster. All right, let's move to corner, Mon. Again, I obviously you have Awuzie, you have Mike Hilton, you have Cam Taylor-Britt. Those 3 right there, that's 3 of the best group of corners that you have right now in this league. I also have the Bengals obviously keeping DJ Turner. Again, I don't think you go out and you waste that pick if he's not a guy that's going to make this roster. And I think he's going to play a lot for this football team. He's played a lot in the preseason. He's got a lot of good snaps. He struggled this week. But again, I think he's a guy that's really going to help this team out later on down the road. This is where it gets kind of interesting for me, right? I keep Jalen Davis, a guy that you love. I think I'll be honest with you. I think he looks better this year than he has in the past. I haven't been big on Jalen Davis, but he looks more and more like he could play in this league to me. And then I'm also going to keep, and this was the other tough one for me, but no, I think I kept 5. I think I kept 5 corners. Yes, I think I kept 5 corners. I wanted Alan George was another tough one for me. I had 6 corners originally with Alan George being that 6th corner, but I kept an extra offensive lineman instead. But I do think Alan George right now is that bubble guy that can really push to make this roster. So I keep 5 corners, 4 safeties, 9 defensive backs. Remember, I kept 1 extra offensive lineman instead. So what do you got at corner?
I have 6 corners total. Obviously, Cheeto, Cam Taylor-Britt, Mike Hilton as the starters there, all solid players. Cheeto's going to be on a snap count. DJ Turner, the high draft pick, he's obviously going to make the team. He's impressed in camp. DJ Ivy, up and down game the other day, but I have DJ Ivy on that team. I think he'll get plucked. He won't make the practice squad. He has a lot of potential there. Obviously, Jalen Davis, I'm a big fan of his. I like what the coach said a couple weeks ago. He could start for a lot of teams right now. Jalen Davis is going to make the team, another core special teamer. Alan George is tough. Hopefully they make it to the practice squad, but I think Ivy, Turner, they're solid players. Sidney Jones, he struggled a little bit in camp. He's a veteran. I think the Bengals are very young if you look at the corner positions. Yeah. Very young. Yeah. Hilton and Cheeto are really the only veterans there. Yeah. The other guys are rookies or second-year players. Don't be surprised. Roster cuts, somebody pops up and they're available. They could be one of those, take one of the spots there. But that's who I have right now. And I expect teams to challenge these defensive backs over the first part of the season because they are young. Mm-hmm. But Lou Anarumo will be ready for that.
Well, I mean, Cheeto, Britt, and Hilton are studs. I mean, those guys are studs.
They are.
And I really think the DJ Ivy thing does it kind of surprises me. I think Alan George makes this roster over DJ Ivy if that's the case. But we'll wait and see. Again, this was a hard one for me because I really wanted to keep. I had 6 corners originally. That was the little bit of confusion I had there because I was like, wait a minute, I kept 6, but I remembered I went back and I switched, kept an extra offensive lineman. We'll see what the Bengals do. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to D-line, Maan. A position right now that the Bengals are loaded at, Maan. They are loaded at D-line, and they should be. They have one of the most expensive in the NFL. Obviously, Hubbard, Hendrickson, Reeder, BJ Hill, those guys are all going to be locks to make this team. Joseph Asai is a lock to make this team. Maan, he has looked really good against the run in preseason. He has played really well against the run, strengthening another facet of his game. Joseph Asai is going to be a player for us this year. I'm telling you right now, he is going to be a huge, impactful player on this defense. We saw the athleticism making the interception off the tip. I love Joseph Asai. Myles Murphy, again, obviously, he's going to make this roster being the number 1 pick. This is where it gets a little interesting, right? Josh Tupou, I think, makes this roster. I think there's no doubt that Josh Tupou makes this roster. Zach Carterman, to me, he has been one of the most impressive players in this offseason going into the preseason. Zach Carter dominated on Friday. He looked great. He is a guy that really just bounced off the screen to me. I think Zach Carter gets a lot of run this year. Jeff Gunter, I have making this roster, Maan. I think he has looked very impressive in the preseason. He's a guy, he really didn't get a shot last year because of health issues. Obviously, was hurt all year, but he looked really good last year as well. Cam Sample, I think, makes this roster as well. That gives me my 10 that I am keeping. I think that is a great group of players. Remember, too, you can move Cam Sample inside. You can move him outside. So you got some guys there that you have some flexibility with as well. Maan, who you got?
Obviously, the big guys, Hendrickson, Hubbard, are no-brainers. Reeder and Hill, all solid, highly paid defensive linemen, one of the highest paid defensive lines in football. Backups, I have Josh Tupou. The Bengals love him. He's a great backup defensive lineman. Zach Carter has improved tremendously, reshaped his body. He looks the part. Cam Sample is going to have a big year for the Bengals this year. Cam Sample is going to be a stud. I like the write-up by Charlie Goldsmith that he's going to make a lot of money next year for another team. Myles Murphy, obviously the rookie. Hopefully he continues to develop. Jay Tuafale. The 3 guys we picked up last year, the final roster cuts, Sharping, Asiasi, and Tuafale is going to make the team. They were all high draft picks. And, of course, Joseph Osai. I expect him to play a lot. But we have 5 defensive linemen, 5 defensive tackles. That's a solid NFL roster right there when it comes to defensive linemen. Very solid.
So really, we just flip Gunter and flip to a Faley. That's where we see a little bit differently there. I just think you need pass rushers, and I think Gunter is a guy that that has that length. And I don't know. I'm very interested to see how this D line is going to shape out as far as those last couple guys. But I like Jeff Gunter. All right, let's go to linebacker. And here we go. Yes, and we have Eric just reminded us too. We have lacked on a lot of interior pass rush. You and I have talked about this. This is episode 75, and you and I have talked about that on 70 of the 75 episodes. We got to have that interior pass rush, and hopefully guys like Carter and maybe moving Sample in and moving some guys around, we can get some of that interior pass rush. Linebacker, Mon, obviously the money guys, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, two of the best in the NFL, two of the best tandem guys in the NFL. Logan Wilson we got for 5 years. I mean, these guys are going to play a lot of football together, and they're going to carry this defense, Mom. Marcus Bailey, I think, is the guy that makes this roster, along with Akeem Davis-Gaither. I think those four guys are locks. And I'm going to go with Joe Bocci, Joey B, the other Joey B, Mon. Joe Bocci, I think, makes this roster. I think he's a special teams guy, and I think he's a guy the Bengals really like. And I think as far as in the inside linebacker goes, that Mike linebacker, if they're going to keep 5, they're going to keep an extra Mike linebacker. Mon, who do you got at linebacker?
Obviously, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, two of the better linebackers in football. The Bengals are so lucky to have those guys signed for multiple years. Logan Wilson signing his contract just a few weeks ago. Jermaine Pratt was a surprise. I didn't think he was going to remain with the Bengals. Marcus Bailey, who I believe is a very underrated linebacker. Charlie Goldsmith, I believe, mentioned that also, that he's going to make a lot of money for some team. Won't be with the Bengals. Got a lot of votes last year for Pro Bowl special teams. Akeem Davis-Gaither, another guy, very athletic. If one of our top 2 gets nicked up, I think those guys are going to be solid. Here's my shocker. I got Hayward as the 5th linebacker, the $35,000 signing bonus undrafted free agent. If you know the Bengals, they don't spend a lot of money on signing bonus on undrafted free agents. They really liked him.
Yep.
Joe Bocci's a fine player. I think they're just going to go with a younger guy with unbelievable measurables. I don't think he survives the cut. I think he'll get claimed by somebody else. Pittsburgh Steelers. He has relatives over there. He's going to get plucked and potentially, or get offered more money to go to somebody else's practice squad. Because don't forget, practice squad players, teams can offer them a full contract to sign on their practice squad. I don't think the Bengals do that.
Right.
And I can see them doing that. But I think Shaka Hayward, 5th linebacker, plays special teams. I think his upside is so much more than Joe Bocci. That's who I have as my 5.
I don't disagree with you, Mon. I'm going to tell you right now, Shaka Hayward was a very difficult decision for me, because I do agree with you 100%. I think you're 100% right about everything you said about the guy. I think his ceiling's just higher. I mean, the guy could be really good. And like you said, obviously he's got a relative over in the Squealers organization in Cam Hayward. So he probably would get scooped up, and we would hate to see him in that ugly yellow and black. That would be just nauseating. All right, let's go over real quick. Special teams, obviously, Mon, we don't really, I think you and I probably have the same. Money Mac, obviously, and then Cal Adamitis, obviously, and then obviously the mustache himself, the stash. The only guy that has a better stash than you, Mon, Brad Robbins.
I agree. Those 3. Special teams solid. McPherson, somebody tweeted it the other day. He's a cheat code. It's hilarious. Robbins is looking the part. His leg looks dynamic out there.
Yeah.
And that's my 3. I agree with you.
Okay. Awesome. I'll say real quick before we get out of here, we're going to do practice squad, Mon. Listen, you're not going to get this, Bengal Pulse listeners. You're not going to get this from a lot of other podcasts out there. The Bengals Pulse, we go above and beyond, Mon. We're going practice squad, Mon. All right, here we go. My practice squad: Mike Thomas, Alan George. I got Jackson Carman, your favorite Bengal right now. Trent Taylor, Kwame Lassiter, who has looked really good at times. DJ Ivy, a guy you have making the final 53. Dominique Davis, a guy I absolutely love. Shaka Hayward, there's Shaka there. I think Shaka is probably at the top of that list when it comes to practice squad guys. Look who I got on there, Mod. Your guy. Trevor Siemian's going to make the practice squad for the Bengals. Drew Chrisman is going to make the practice squad for the Bengals. Cedric Jackson, a guy that played really well on Friday. Raymond Johnson, a guy I absolutely love, Mon, that just has been bouncing off of film. Devin Asiasi, because, Mon, he is a practice squad player. We're going to put him where he belongs, not on the 53. Ben Brown, and your favorite Bengal right now, a guy you told me on Friday you're going to buy his jersey, Jackson Kirkland, Mon, your favorite Bengal. You've already ordered his jersey. He is going to make this practice squad along with Matt Hippenhammer, just because I love the name Hippenhammer. But, yes, that is my practice squad, Mon. Who you got?
Okay, I got Alan George, obviously, Mike Thomas, Cedric Jackson, Joe Bocci, Tanner Hudson, Nate Gilliam, who I really think the Bengals like, Kwani Lassiter, Raymond Johnson. I tell you what, he really impressed. Yeah. Dominique Davis. I got Cody Ford coming back, Ben Brown, Sidney Jones, Owen Carey, Jeff Gunter. And also I got Drew Chrisman coming in right also. If you notice something, I don't have a quarterback there.
Yeah.
So I think, and I still have a running back. You got to have another running back, Jacob Saylor, another guy they gave a large signing bonus to as an undrafted free agent. I don't have a quarterback there because I think they're going to pluck one final roster cut. So one of these players on my practice squad will be deleted and replaced with a quarterback, potentially final roster cuts. So that's who I have.
You're telling me, Mon, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, and it's not your medication talking. You're telling me that Jake the Snake Browning is not in a Bengals uniform this year?
I am saying that. I'm going to say that. Yes, I am.
What?
I am. He could potentially be on the practice squad. I don't think he's going to be our wide receiver too. Listen, that take could be wrong, and he could be our second string quarterback.
Yeah.
If he does make the roster over Trevor Siemian, I'll come on the Bengals Pulse say I got that take wrong. But I think Trevor Siemian, as I said earlier, safest. It's the best bet for the Bengals to have somebody who has over 30 NFL starts as an NFL quarterback. Over 30. That's huge, man. That's a big thing, especially if this calf muscle flares up and he's out for 2 weeks, Joe Burrow. We got to have a quarterback of experience. I'm not wishing that.
Don't speak that, Mom. Do not speak that. We can't do that. Listen, my heart cannot take that. We cannot.
I got you.
We're not even going to talk about that. And Mon, listen, if the past represents itself like it always has, you will be coming on the Bengals Pulse, and you will be apologizing to me for not being right.
I hear you.
The past does not lie, Mon. All right. Well, let's bring Eric back on before we get out of here. Eric, there he is. Eric, once again, man, welcome to the Bengals Pulse. We are so excited to have you, man. Thank you for everything. Thank you for bringing us into the 21st century, right, Mom?
Absolutely. I was about to write some stuff here because that was the Bengals graphics back in the day. I would write and say, "Hey, look at this."
We have graphics.
I'm not fired.
No. We're gonna keep you around for sure. We're gonna keep you around.
Eric, I'm not gonna I gave you the list. You made those slides. I forgot it. I'm like, because I didn't know who the next player was. I forgot. I'm getting old. Let's go.
Eric, you're gonna learn, Eric, that he's starting to lose. It's just gradually, slowly, it's going away.
I put the list up there for both you old guys, so no problem.
Jake, there's so much Bengal knowledge up here. It's okay for that to happen. It's okay. I still got it.
Mon has forgotten more Bengal stats than we'll ever know. And that's fine.
Keep on talking, Eric. I love it. All right.
All right, guys. That is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give Maan and I that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. As always, follow us on Twitter. Follow Maan at the Fire Maan. Follow me at Coach Jake Owens 9. Make sure you follow the Bengals Pulse as well at Bengals_Pulse9, and on Instagram the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, make sure you check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Wincinnati Podcast Network. He is Maan. He is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hooday, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.
See you later, guys.
Good day.
Oh, take care. All right.